What's up? Welcome back to the Real Revenue Show, where we discuss real business concepts that'll help you grow and scale any business model. We're your hosts. I'm Malcom and Andre. This is Andre Trust. And this week we will be discussing the concept of speed, the minimum viable product versus perfectionism, and trying to wait to get your product or service out to the public, into the market. So, Dre, welcome. Welcome back.
Of course, of course. It's always a good time to get back on the show.
Yes.
We launched the first episode. It's going well. I'm pretty excited.
Me too. I was really excited about that. We got some really good feedback from people who really grasped what we were talking about. I was kind of nervous I didn't want to seem like we were trying to appear smarter. You know what I'm saying? But I felt like people really understood where we were going, and I think this would be a great journey. Still, you know what I mean?
It's tough, bro. I was very nervous, to be completely honest. Just I kind of want the show to be raw and people kind of get to know our personalities and know who we are.
Right.
I was kind of nervous because I am a data person. I'm not really, for anybody that knows me, I'm not the one that's ever in front of the camera. I'm kind of like the guy behind the scenes. I kind of, do the numbers, the data, and I just kind of put the plan on the desks and stuff like that. So this is my first real time, just being in front of cameras and stuff like that. So it's an exciting journey for me, but I'm ready, bro. Like I think this is going to be a good one for the people, for the culture, for everything.
Definitely. So as we did like last week, we'll do it this week. So what's been happening in your business lately?
So this week I'm kind of focusing on switching our schedule.
Got it. Okay.
I was kind of sitting back. My buddy Eric pretty much came to me and was just like, "Hey man, like, when we started business, our goal was always to have more time. But the issue is we left the one circumstance of like having no time to putting ourselves into another circumstance in which we have no time.
Right.
So, but it's not because like we don't have time because systems aren't in place. We don't have time because we're workaholics. Like we just like to be at the office. Our office is like a clubhouse, by the way. Gotcha. I gotta have you come down to North Carolina. Man. It's a clubhouse. We turn up. It's basically just like a free for all in terms of like what I wanted, and I realized that I can get the max out of people if I put no parameters on how they can create their workspace.
Gotcha.
So you'll come in here and everybody's listening to whatever music they want to listen to. You'll see people just eating, having fun. Like everybody's allowed to have. If you want to have a drink at your desk, you can. I don't have any rules on it. That's not just reserved for the bosses or anything like that. So it's created a really good work environment where everybody wants to be here. It's a fun environment. And in fact, all of my employees like being at the office more than they like being at home. So similar for me. I love being at my office. My office is basically my second home.
Yeah, same. This our office space has turned into like a real safe haven for us because we haven't like really added everything yet, but it's been quiet and we've been able to kind of just really lock in and get a lot of work done. Like our productivity has been amazing. Actually.
And you get to hang out. That's the point of work. It's kind of, I'm starting to realize that. But yesterday we just decided to just shut down. It was like 12 o'clock. I didn't feel like doing any work. Clearly, the employees didn't want to do any work. I was just like, guys, let's just go home. Yeah. Let's meet over at the restaurant. Let's have some dinner and have some drink. Like it was like, let's have some lunch. I told them I'll take care of like their dinner.
Yeah, we're not gonna skip over how fly that is. You went to your own restaurant. We're not gonna skip over that part.
I'm still getting used to that, man. That's such a fun time, man. Right. It's not really only about the money at that point. Mm-hmm. For me, it's just an opportunity to just get away, but I'm in a place that I created. So it's kind of dope. Right. We had this real fly drink came out yesterday. It was the Midori Sour. Has like a two blue, like huge blue ice cubes in it. Has like a Midori Sour mix, and it's like green, but it has the blue. It's fire. So
we got to get down there soon.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun time, bro.
So well, for me this week, nothing extraordinary happened. I actually spoke about this on my YouTube channel when. Some days, like you really don't get like a real strike of genius. It's really just doing the boring work, right? Like the boring work in your field where it's just like it has to get done. It's not amazing, it's not spectacular. You're not gonna get a pat in the back for it, but you need to kind of get it done, and that's what we're doing right now. We're just kind of in it. You know what I mean? If that makes real sense.
Yeah, it's crazy. 98% of the time, bro, that's what it is.
And people, I don't think people really get that when it comes to like building a business. They think it's, every day is something new. Like every day I finish my book, or any day I finish this project, or we're about to launch this. Some days you just have to do the work. You have to write out those email sequences, or you have to edit that video, or you have to just send out that broadcast, and that's really it. You know what I mean? So that's where we're at right now. We finished our move. Like we're still getting some pieces that'll come through, but we're just in it now. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So let's talk about this concept of speed. And I know I've struggled with this as well, because in my head I'm thinking I want to be a perfectionist, right? I think I have this project and I'm rolling out, but in my head I want this to be perfect, so I push it back. I push the deadline back, or I push it, or I say this is for next quarter, or this is for the top of the year, even though the idea of perfectionism, like you have to know what you have to change in order to perfect it. So that's kind of the quagmire a lot of people find themselves in, me included. So what were your thoughts on that?
So everything that I try to talk about is always going to be rooted in some type of lesson that I learned either from a client, from the pain, sweat, and tears that I had to put in for it, or just mistakes. So one of the things I started to kind of notice, it was a real trend, was whenever I'd put out deadlines, and I've done this with you and a lot of other people as well, is like whenever I put out a deadline, the deadline has zero emotion attached to it.
Right.
It's based on daily steps taken towards the goal and the end goal date. Never like, hey, I just don't feel X, stuff like that. So it was tough for me to start to understand. But when I peeled the onion back, I started to ask more of the question, like, hey, what's taking so long? I would hear that phrase pop up a lot, like, I'm just a perfectionist. And I was like, okay, then you gotta peel back the onion. Okay, what's the definition of the word perfectionist? But the definition of the word perfectionist isn't equaling up to what you're actually doing. It has a completely different definition than what you're doing. So now I have to start asking the question, okay, as I start to like really peel back and ask more questions and be a lot deeper in the flow of what perfectionism is, I have to start asking, or trying to at least articulate, like, what's the real meaning behind everyone's definition of perfectionism here? Because it wasn't really registering to me. And I'll tell you why in a few, why it wasn't registering to me.
Okay.
But I'm starting to realize that, and this is something that I went through as well, because I wasn't calling it being a perfectionist, but I wasn't putting stuff out.
Gotcha.
So I was starting to realize that, okay, I'm falling into this category as well. So I think I need to kind of, really dive in a bit more, and starting to realize for me personally, and as I start to like ask more questions, it deals more with, I would say, insecurity and like not wanting to mess up or not wanting to put out the wrong thing. That you get in your head and you start to think like, okay, well, there has to be a perfect version of this that everybody would like. But the real truth is that we all know perfection can never be really achieved.
Right.
So
I think everybody has that understanding, but still use that as an excuse. Right.
Exactly. So that was something I was struggling with. So I just started calling people on it. I'm kind of, for lack of a better terms, I'm pretty straightforward and blunt. So I just start calling people. I'm all like, hey, man, you're just insecure about something. Because I know I was insecure. So maybe you're insecure too. And it started unraveling very heavily that perfectionism is really just a form of like insecurity wrapped in procrastination. Do you feel like that's far-fetched? I'm off target?
No, I actually agree. Because it is rooted in insecurity, because you don't want to look stupid. So you saying, I want it to be so perfect that when it does come out, somebody does have something to say, it's so perfect they don't really, you know what I mean? So I think that's where it comes from. You know what I mean? Like I know for a fact, with my book, not even with the book per se. I think with the marketing of my book, where I had to actually get in front of the camera and actually market to people that I knew I went to school with, and that wasn't really my comfort. You know what I mean? Especially like promoting myself, I was really uncomfortable with that at first. So I was saying like I just kind of want. I was making every excuse to not be in front of the camera. So my marketing, promotional materials were centered around other things at first, and then I had to actually put myself in front of the camera, and I took way longer than I should have to do that. And it was rooted in insecurity. I just didn't want people to see me, I don't know, look stupid. I'm not even sure.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Even like that's what I was mentioning earlier is like, I've had a lot of knowledge on business for a long time, and I've just been kind of to myself, and anybody who's asked me a question, I've been more than willing to help out. But
Right.
for the masses, I've never done so. It's like, there's a lot out there, but with that, then you also have to start thinking about like, what's the alternative? I think that's been something that's helped me out a lot. Is like, okay, what's the alternative? If I don't put this out, what do I lose? And a reoccurring theme that you'll hear me talk about a lot during this show, just in general, is how important time is. Right? I want to continue to stress that and get that across to people that timing is your time should be more valuable than any dollar that you can imagine. Like, I don't care if it's $1 billion, time needs to be the importance, because the importance of money is to gain time.
Got you.
Right? So that's where I started to implement, and I started looking around. I'm like, okay, what do customers like to do? Customers like to complain, bro. Like that's just, I realized that I had to bring it back. I was like, okay, what exactly do customers do? They want something that is perfect for them. Right? And what does perfect for them mean? They're the only ones that know what perfect for them means. We're never going to know because there's too many clients, right?
Right.
If you try to make that was the catch-22 that I had to really figure out, is that if you focus so heavily on one way of thinking, then you're going to miss the 98% of other ways to think. Right? So you'll hear, and you've heard me talk about this a lot. We talk about minimum viable product. All right. And what is a minimum viable product? It's just the base. Like, just literally just, like, let's say, for instance, I'll use the iPhone as an example.
Okay.
Right? You remember the original iPhone, and I know you remember it because in high school you had it. You were like the first person with the iPhone. I thought that was so fly, bro. I was jealous as hell. I was like, all right, I gotta get one too. Yeah. Malc has one. But it came out and it was basic.
Right.
It could make phone calls. It could send text messages.
And
it could do notes.
Decent. Yeah.
And it was very rooted in just being able to just start taking apps. Those were like the 4 things. And then what did they do? They send it out to, the masses, and it's like, hey, masses, tell me what you want and I'll build what you want. The issue is with the concept of perfectionism, you're building the perfect product for you.
Right.
And not for the customer.
That's a good point.
So I'm always, in my mind, I always try to take that out. So whenever I have some type of product, I just try to eliminate the emotion that comes with it, eliminate myself. I detach myself. Another thing you will hear me say a lot is I never build companies or anything like that for friends or anyone around me. Right?
Okay.
And the reason is like, if you're building the product with a limited view of only the people around you, then you're going to miss your intended market. So I always build the product, service, or anything around my intended person. I'll use an example. In 2017, and this is what was a hit for me and my first real winner of a company, because I also want to point this out there. I've had hundreds of failed businesses. Just failed businesses. I want to make that very clear. You're seeing the end product, Andre, or not even the end product, the start of a new journey, Andre, right? Where I'm winning now, but before these wins, I was losing on a very consistent basis. I want to make that very clear, right? So I'm losing up until like 2017, just continuously losing. None of my businesses are working, but I'm learning why they're not working through failure, which is going to be a whole nother episode where we talk about failure and things like that.
Definitely.
But I'm realizing why they're not working. And I get to 2017 and I'm like, okay, my buddy just sparked it in my head. He's like, yo, bro, why don't you buy a house with the VA loan? He's like, and I'm a dude that's in the finances. I know money. I understand it. VA loan, finance. I don't really know what that is. Then I'm like, wait, if I don't know what that is,
right,
and I'm the guy that's into finances, I know money, I know a lot about these things, then chances are a lot of other people don't know about this. And it's not to be, oh, you know, I'm feeling high and mighty. But when you're in your field, you kind of know if you don't know something, more than likely somebody else doesn't know it.
That's a fact.
So then I started to deep dive and I identified my target audience, which was military personnel. It wasn't civilians. It wasn't anyone else. It wasn't my friends. It wasn't military personnel. My product was the fact that no one on document or record ever was speaking about the VA loan with the ability to create a real estate portfolio from it. That was my niche right there.
Got you.
So with that niche, I'm like, okay, I can wait on this, spend forever to build a course, spend forever to, you know, get the right amount of data, speak to the right amount of people, do X, really validate it. Or I can just start taking massive action, which I'm a big fan of, just massive action. I just love, we call it omnipresence. I'm going to speak to this in another episode as well. But just the art of being everywhere at all times. So I just was like, you know what? Nobody's talking about the VA loan. Nobody's teaching the VA loan. Nobody's guiding the VA loan. Nobody knows what they're doing with this. Okay, I'm going to be the leader in this space. I spoke to my partner. He's like, all right, cool, same thing. He's aggressive on not wasting time ever. Right. I think he's worse than me. I probably got it from him. Where it's like, okay, cool, we're putting it out tomorrow. I was like, bro, but we don't have a PowerPoint. We don't have anything. He's like, we have the knowledge though. Let's just put it out tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay.
I envy that in a lot of people. I'm not gonna lie.
I was just so being with him. We always joke because you remember Goku and Vegeta when they did the fusion.
Yes.
over time, Tellers and I have like fused into like one person because we're together all the time and we hold each other accountable all the time to everything. So whenever one of us is weak in something, as like two alpha males and like alpha male CEOs, we're extremely like, oh, you suck. Like you got to pick it up. And because we're how we are, it's a constant like, I got to do better. I got to get better. So we just decided to put it out and I just started getting to the masses. Hey, did you know with your VA loan, you create a portfolio? And people were like, no, actually, I only heard you could use the VA loan one time. Well, that's all false. You can actually use it unlimited amount of times. In fact, you could buy up 100 properties with your VA loan once over a period of your lifetime while utilizing it correctly with these strategies. And it was a wrap.
Got you.
And literally in that span from 2017 to about 2019, we won in terms of like, because of speed, we were the first to market.
Right.
And in 2019, everyone caught up.
So what would you say to people? What would you say to the person like that's coming to you? They have an idea and you're saying, all right, get it out. But their business is on a schedule to like, they have things that they're supposed to roll out by month or by quarter. And this new idea will probably jumpstart something way more beneficial to them, but they're trying to kind of like wait for, I guess, the start of the new quarter or something to that effect.
So I do want to make clear that there are different sections, right?
Okay.
So if something makes sense timing wise, then it makes sense timing wise.
Okay.
But if it's like, hey, I'm not putting it out because I just want to keep chipping away at it.
Got you.
Then that's very different from I'm not putting it out because realistically it's November, but the best time for the product is going to be January 1. Right. So in that time, I would say still build it quickly.
Right.
Don't waste time. Still build it quickly and then spend that in between time on anticipation and marketing. So you still want to, so you still want to get it out there, but you don't want to just wait till the last minute, because then that slows you down, because you know who's not slowing down? Your competitors.
That's a fact.
They're not ever slowing down.
For the people who are watching and people who are listening, that was an actual conversation me and Andre have had on my business as well. So that was real coaching just now in real time. But because so there you are. But so because and I asked that because um I've seen a lot of people say this as well. Like, we have these things planned, but they kind of stumble upon something that's like, wait, this would be way better for us, right? Mm-hmm. But again, like you said, it's that feeling of waiting, knowing that your competition is doing something as well, and you don't want to be the last out there to do it. And I think that's what a lot of people struggle with as well. Like, you want to be out there, but you don't want a bad product either. You know what I mean?
So one of the things too that is quarterly planning. Mm-hmm. Never hesitate to pivot. That's a part of speed, right? So there's holding on because you know an idea has a tipping point. Similar for me, 2017 to 2018, I didn't expect to make any money from real estate because I had to get people into the pipeline to learn what I'm talking about. Trust me, build that. So from 2017 to 2018, we did okay, but we didn't really make money.
Right.
But my intent wasn't to make money. My intent was social proof and building up the real clout within that community for them to trust what I'm saying. That was my goal from 2017 to 2018. But I knew my tipping point would be when all of them internalize it. So if 300 people at once internalize, oh, wow, I can really build a portfolio that allows me to quit my job with a loan that's designed for me without having to come out of pocket any money.
Right.
And this is like on document, on books. This makes sense, but I'm paying rent and wait, I'm paying rent to a guy that's doing this right now to me. You see what I'm saying? Like, because of the way it was, but it all hit at once. And our backlog of clients, bro, it was like almost like it was just like a masterpiece that all hit at once.
Right.
Everyone was like, I need a house, I need 2, I need 3, I need X. Right. And I'm just like, well, come on, guys, I got you. Right? Because I did the legwork of like, you really trust me because one, I've done this myself.
Right.
I'm not doing anything that I didn't say that I personally didn't do. I have proof. You viewed it. You've done your own research to be like, oh, wow, this guy really knows what he's talking about. Okay, now it's time to trust him. And now it's time for you to reap those benefits. But the point that I'm trying to get at is we were still able to execute that immediately, even if the actual like payout and win wasn't for a while. Right. But doing those quarterly updates, you know, we make pivots immediately. Like our original idea wasn't that. Our original idea was like door knocking and being like, hey, you know, all the traditional senses of like what real estate is. Because when you get in, they have a preconceived notion of what you're supposed to do, which is you're supposed to be a salesman. I didn't like that. I'm like, all right, way more than a salesman. I'm not a realtor. I didn't really like being called a realtor. I'm like, that doesn't really give justice to the fact that I really know what I'm doing at a large scale, like macro business scale level.
Got you.
I was like, okay, how can we?
Makes sense.
And it hit us immediately. Like, okay, well, that was our niche. And we just pivoted like immediately. Like there was no, because we knew that there was a better route. So I would say like continuing, you know, to evaluate the business, continuing to actually look at your business and say, okay, is there an opportunity for pivot? Is there a better way? And if there's a better way, you need to be ruthless in terms of your speed. Like you should not be wasting any time, because when you have that idea, I'm telling you, right? People underestimate how much their competitors watch, right? Your competitors are ready to pounce at all times. Or there's also other people that look up to you that want to be in the same space. And they're not necessarily trying to be your competitor, but by virtue of jumping into the same business with the same act, they become a competitor. And it's not malice, it's not an issue, but you also have to be, you can't be naive to that fact that other people are working, right? The issue is to work efficiently, work smart, but then get the product out there and engage with the customers. Because what what goes into, so I'll peel back the onion on this, right? I'll ask you that question. What do you think goes into good customer service?
Well, obviously knowing what they want, right? For me, us good customer service, knowing what they want, listening to the customer, because say for our show, like, or for our just business, our clothing or our show specifically, our podcast specifically, and it's something about our show that they really don't like, and if we get that same complaint consistently from different people, and it doesn't have to be at the same time, it could be over time, like it could be like over 3 months we've gotten this complaint 30, 40 times, and we know, okay, something is there. And if 40 people reach out to you, and we have thousands of listeners, 40 people reach out to you, that means there's a lot more people who feel the same way. So then we kind of just like, all right, we have to implement this or take this out of the show. And I think that's what a good customer service is about. Like, how about you?
Exactly. So that was the point that I was trying to get at. And it's like the fact that you listen.
Yeah.
That's why I like speed, because it's an excuse to listen to your customers more. So I start off immediately, like just splat on the page. I just get it on the page, and then I let the customers know, hey, I am trying to, and you don't have to be afraid to do that, by the way.
Yeah, but I actually give you an example. Every single time we've launched something here, whether it be the blog in 2017, whether it be the first time we actually set up the shop on the website, the first time we set up the membership, every single time something went wrong. Like, and we're wrong in the sense that the process to buy wasn't as smooth, or the process to get to this article wasn't as smooth. So you had to go back in and make it a little streamlined. But getting those complaints helped out a lot, because it made it a more seamless process to get what you want. And that's what it's about, right? We want to cut down the time it takes for you to see a product and buy the product, and not get tripped up by anything where like the user interface on the website is bad, or just to find something is all over the place. So I used to complain about how like often things go wrong, but it actually helps because people are kind of just exposing it and they're helping you at the same time.
Exactly. And a lot of people are afraid of that criticism because they think it makes them look bad. But no, what makes you look bad is hearing the criticism and doing nothing about it. That's what makes you look bad, right? But to a customer who really wants to see you succeed, this is why like I focus on a brand new customer. They have no bias, right? Because for me, I'm a clown, bro. I like, you know that. I'm the biggest clown on the face of the earth, bro. I love the joke. I love the laugh. I love the play around. So somebody who knows me but doesn't know me in a business capacity might say, oh, Trust jokes a lot. You're right. I am a clown. I'm a huge clown. But when it comes to business, I'm not. There's a whole different person that, you know, you have to meet in that sense. So I like a brand new customer that has no affiliation to me because there's no bias. They just want their product. They just want their X. They just want their service. So when I started the real estate company and I did it, my main focus was surveys. So after every single purchase, you'd be like, hey, how could we have made this process better for you, bro? Or sis, or like, how can I have made this process better for you? And we have like a detailed outbrief of like, hey man, I was nervous about the process and I didn't get an update. So I'm like, okay, cool. Every Monday in the guidelines, you send out an update to the client. And then my assistant is just getting this information like nonstop. Like, okay, Mondays. So now every single Monday, an update goes out, whether we have an update or not.
Right.
The update is that we have no update. Right? Because when you're purchasing a house and you're nervous and there's a lot of emotion and you just don't hear anything, not hearing anything in a real estate transaction is a good thing.
Right. right.
But when you don't know that, how would you know it's a good thing?
Right.
It's a panic. Did they find something? Wow, is it going to happen? I'm moving my family. There's so much emotion that goes into it. Then I'm like, okay, it makes logical sense that they probably want an update. So every Monday, there's an update, right? Every couple of days, if there's a new phase, whenever a new phase comes out in the building process, they get an update, right? If there's a better pricing option, they get an update. And all of these things are so repetitive and automatic that now you accustom the client to not have to reach out to you. That's another part, right? If you're giving the client everything that they want, There's a difference between taking 2 minutes and giving an update or getting a call that now takes away 2 hours of your time because you got to explain everything and explain and talk through their anxiety with them and talk through their fear. We got to the height, bro. So, I love that. I love statistics. So I was looking up the average amount of houses that a realtor will show before they're able to sell to a client. It was like 20 some odd houses, bro. Our average was 3, and you're under contract within 7 hours.
All right, explain that.
Right. So remember what I talk about with speed, right?
Right.
So a lot of realtors go into the process, and this is the same across the board, right? A lot of people go into the process with their product saying that the customer is going to have, they're going to take their time, and they accept that. Incorrect. The customer is coming to you because they see you as the subject matter expert. They see you as the person that's going to guide them and lead them. So what I did was I started to use data, and I'd explain it to them. So instead of taking 30 hours on nonsense, whenever I start with a client, I take 1 hour for a detailed class. And in that class, it's like, hey, the human psyche, like this is scientific data. The more options you have, the more difficult it is going to be for you to make a decision. That is not me saying that. That is every neuroscientist, that's every social philosopher, social scientist out there. It is a fact with humans.
Right.
So what I want to do, right? Like, what are your goals? Well, your goal is to get a really nice house that's also going to be high valued. That's also going to be able to re-rent at a high value or be able to resell at a high value. So you want to be able to get, to accumulate, profits within the time that you own the house.
Right.
So how are you going to get that? Well, you got to choose a top 5 house. Right? You can't choose because if you choose a top 5 house, who else is going to want a top 5 house? Everyone else. Right. So in order to get a top 5 house, you got to be focused on a top 5 house. You can't be getting your 19th choice. If this was a job, if you were getting drafted to the NBA, or would you want your 19th choice, or would you want your top 3 choices?
Facts. Okay.
Right? Nobody wants their 19th. You get me? Nobody wants their 19th choice. So I would approach it with that. I build out a spreadsheet, and I do the front load up front. I do the work up front. I'd send them a detailed spreadsheet with like 30 houses. And hey, man, you, whoever is the other decision maker, you guys take some time and y'all pick out the top 7 houses. Top 7. And the reason I say top 7 is because I know for a fact the 1 through 7 is going to go fast.
Right.
So by the time they put in their top 7, 3 of them already sold. So now they understand that to get a top-notch house, you gotta move with top-notch speed.
Gotcha.
And make it but you gotta be able to ask the right questions. So, and when I was teaching the new realtors this, they were like, hey, isn't that like wrong? I was like, no, it's actually not, because they're coming to you because you're the expert. Which expert is ever going to recommend the 18th investment idea? They're going to want you in the number 1 investment. And every single one of my clients, like clockwork, every single one of them houses appreciated ridiculously. They all have the best properties. They all have the best areas, because we created a system that focuses around the top things. Right. So, and that comes with speed. So once again, we're coming back to that same topic of speed.
Right.
And now my clients are starting to realize, like, okay, no matter what, you're going to have buyer's remorse. That's a part of what I put in up front. I did a lot of work on like what goes into this process. No matter which house you pick, you're going to have buyer's remorse. I need you to come to grips and understand that you're going to have buyer's remorse no matter what.
Come to grips.
You could pick the perfect house. You're always going to be like, I had one client leave me like this really bad review. And I was like, okay. And I laughed about it because if you read the review, it made no sense. He says, hey, the house was beautiful. It's everything that my wife and I wanted. We came into the property with $20,000 worth of equity. It's in the number 1 area. My kids are good to go. And by the time I was getting ready to sell the property, it had appreciated close to $80,000. And then he says, I just felt like I was rushed. And I'm like, that's a valid opinion. That's a valid point. If he feels like he was rushed, he was rushed. But in order to get a deal like that,
you had to move quick.
You have to move quick. There's no catch-22, or you're gonna get.
Listen, what I've learned in business is that customers and you need customers for your business to thrive, but customers will give you a headache on sometimes, like just the logic. Sometimes you're just like what do you want? I did my job. You got what you wanted, but the fact that I rushed you, I had to push you to this point, or you wouldn't have got it. Then that review would sound different. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. You would have got the 20th choice house, would have got no equity. You would actually have to pay more out of pocket.
Wouldn't have been able to sell it.
You wouldn't have been able to sell it. You wouldn't have been able to. So you actually really won in this scenario, but you won so much that it doesn't feel real that you won. There has to be something wrong here.
Yeah.
And you went he was like, hey, I just felt like I was rushed. I felt like there's too much emphasis on what I could get out of this. He's talking about himself. And I was like, all right, he just wanted something to be wrong. And I have to be okay with that. But a part of with that is the speed that comes along with being able to get those deals in place. Because yes, he was still upset about that, but he still recommended like 10 of his friends to me, which makes no sense to me. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that wasn't really a bad review, but it was probably an annoyance more than anything.
Exactly. So I was just like, exactly. So, I mean, on your end, have you seen that speed is starting to allow you to do more things or how do you feel about that?
Because the question I asked before, because there are things that make sense timing wise to wait on, but when we wait to like create something new, or when we wait for the actual making of it, we've seen speed work in that sense. Like we have been working way faster to get something out, even to get it to people to beta testers. Like, okay, listen, this is what we have. This is what we've been working on. What do you think? So now when we do launch, let's say at the top of 2022, we have social proof because we have people who've taken it, who've taken the course, who have used our product to say like this worked for me. Like this showed me how to do A to Z, or we have people to go, okay, I didn't fully understand that. Could you like explain that in greater detail so we can add content to whatever we're doing? So speed definitely has been a factor in how we've moved to this point. And now as well, because I remember when we were thinking about creating our membership. This is back in April. This is back in March. We launched in April. This is back in March. And I was dragging my feet because I wanted to know if we should use Patreon, if we should use another one, if we should use something else. Maybe we should use a YouTube membership. And then I was nervous about not having a lot of content actually in the membership to start off. But going back to speed, we were able to kind of repurpose some content to make it exclusive. And then we came up with we have an after show to where that's after the podcast. People in the membership can get to it like a private live to where we discuss something like way more in depth, way more uncut. And that came up on the fly. Like literally, like people watched our Instagram live. Me and my pops discussed it live, and we said, "Let's do it." And we just did it. And then now to the point where, if you are a new member, when we first started the membership, we had like it was bare bones. We didn't have a lot of content in it.
I'm a proud member, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. So now, if you join now, it's so much content in there. There's no way you're getting into everything in a month. You get what I'm saying? And that's because we moved with speed to the point where we got everything in there. We decided on the move. We stuck with it. And to this point now, you wouldn't have known that it was even a discussion to even it wasn't even a discussion, or it wasn't even a problem that we wouldn't have a lot of content in there. Did that make any sense?
It does.
Okay.
Right. And that's why I kind of build in that philosophy. Who said it? Was it big? Shoot first, ask questions later.
Yes.
Ask questions last.
Yes.
Right. And that's how we approach everything. I'm going to put it out there, and the customers, and that's why I love customers. I want people to start repurposing how they think about what their clients say or what their customers say.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of business owners that just get pissed.
No, but listen, bro. I empathize because I get it, bro. I promise you, I get it.
No. I get that side.
Yeah.
I get that side. But what I'm saying is, remember what I talked about in episode 1, where I talked about like filters.
Yes.
Like we put the filters in place so we don't have to deal with the trolls or those who just want to create a negative day, so that we can get to the meat and potatoes, which is the people who want to help us and tell us what to do. I love those people. Tell me what you need me to do so I can get it done for you. And then that way it's because the customer, I don't believe the customer is always right. I think that's false.
Yeah, I tell people that a lot. Like, you want to listen, especially in content creation, you want to listen to your audience, but you can't listen to everybody because everybody, like when they're giving feedback, they usually giving feedback to what they personally want to hear all the time. And that could be way far off to what you do. You probably resonated with them in a specific video to where you said everything they want to hear, but that's not what you do all the time.
All the time.
You get what I'm saying? So if you listen to everybody's opinion all the time, you're going to be going every which way, and you're not going to zero in on a niche that is yours.
Exactly.
I tell people that all the time.
And focusing on, once again, I'm going to keep preaching it, right? The clearer we are, the less stress we face.
Yes.
So having a clear picture of where you want the company to go, it does matter how you get there. You don't want to get there in a sleazy way or a way that's going to, disrespect or tarnish your reputation. I would never say that, right? But if your customer has a better way to get to the same endpoint, then you should probably take it. If they're in mass, bringing this to you, and there's a data trend of like, okay, this is clearly a problem, right? But then acting on that fast as well. So we have like almost like we have like a 48-hour turnaround. If somebody brings something to us that we know is like 48 hours, it gets implemented, everything gets switched, everything gets updated, and then we send out a personal thank you. Sometimes Tellers and I do it in like a video or like a quick little audio message, and we'll send it to them so it's personalized.
Yeah, we've done that with shirt designs. Like if shirt or hoodie design, somebody came up with something like on the chat, like in the chat live, we doing the podcast. I'm like, oh, that'll be fire. And we just sent them a free hoodie, like with that design. Like, that's on you because that was a great idea for us.
So like people, what do people love to talk about? People love to talk about themselves, right? And you'll hear me reference a lot of like neuroscience, social scientists, social sciences, and along those lines, because that's important for business owners to understand that there's a psychology that goes into this. Right. If the clients love to talk about themselves, right?
Which they do.
And you get an update from the client, and the client is like, oh, dang, they really implemented my idea. What do you think that client is going to go do?
Tell people.
Tell everyone, hey, go watch that show. They implemented my idea. Right. And it's not, and I want to get away from, because I've had, as I'm learning more about this stuff, sometimes it can seem like, okay, damn, is this a form of manipulation? But it's not, because you're giving them what they want. They just don't know how to say that to you. So it's almost like it's a burden of understanding it and using it correctly. Because obviously there are people online that scam and do these things and do it incorrectly because they know how people, they understand the science that goes into it, and they take advantage of that. The goal is everything that we do, we're going to be upstanding citizens. We're going to give to the environment, and we're going to reciprocate that energy at all times. So anybody that's around me, I want them to leave the environment of being around me and want to go do more in their community and helping people, because sometimes people just don't know how to articulate things or how to express those things. Right. Like the guy I mentioned earlier, right? He told me he wanted these things. Right. He told me he wanted these things. I made those things happen, but the real issue wasn't him. the real issue, the real underlying issues that his wife didn't feel involved. That's really what it was. Like, so, and for me, I have to sit there and be like, you know what? Someone has to take the blame here. I'm not going to let my man take the fall.
Gotcha.
He has to blame someone. I understand, right? But it comes with that burden of being well read, well researched, and understanding. Oh wow, this is in people's nature. So you got to kind of help and aid in that nature, and just understand that sometimes it's not going to bode well in your favor,
right?
But then using, to get back all the way, to take it full circle back to where we started, is, trying to be perfect is literally what will allow you to not be. Right. So now I kind of want everybody to get out there with that tenacity of like, okay, if I want to start something, just start it. Right. Now, let me preface that again. I always like to preface, because I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm not here to just give you motivation. I want to give you motivation, yes, but there's always going to be tangible things, right?
Definitely.
I'm saying start something if you've already done the necessary research and understand whether or not it's viable.
Work.
Right. So I'm going in with that assumption that you already know your target audience, that you know your market that you're going to be reaching out to. You know a semblance of the product, even if it's not the perfect product. You have the base of the product or service or item or anything that you want to do, or podcast or digital, or intellectual property. You already have a basis of what you want to do, and a plan, and where your end goal is, and whether or not it's feasible.
Right.
Because I'll have people come to me and tell me that they want to start certain things, right? And I'm like, hey man, that's not really feasible. And it's not trying to be rude, but people don't understand the timing of things, right? Like, example, for you, right? You launched your clothing and your merch, right? Which was dope, but you didn't launch the clothing and merch first, right? You built a community of people who want to, in all spirit, want to support you. And that's the point of business, is like, it's a good thing to want to support somebody. It's a good thing to not feel pressured to support. You're supporting because you like I always tell you, yes, you're my friend. Yes, you're my brother. I also really love your show, bro. I'm a fan of yours.
Thank you.
Right? So it's like, I'm not just participating because you're my friend. I think you know me well enough to know that, right? But it's also like, your stuff is really good. You spending a lot of time. It's really fun. So anything that I can do to make sure that doesn't go away, I want to do.
Gotcha.
Right? But you have to time those things up in the correct space. So I'll have somebody that come to me and say, hey, I want to start a t-shirt company, or I want to start merch. And I'm like, hey, bro, do you have a following? No, I don't. So then you're just going to be selling to your friends and family. Yeah. How long can you sell to your friends and family? You can't. It's not sustainable.
Right.
And I want people to get away from, oh, he just doesn't believe in me. That's not the case. It's not that I don't believe. It's that to have a real, viable, large-scale, long-term business that you can scale, the minimum amount of support, if you have a mid-tier to low-ticket item, is 1,000 people. You need 1,000 people that truly trust and follow you.
I actually preach about that concept a lot, of having 1,000 true fans, because people don't realize of, like, if you have 1,000 true fans, and these are people who, whatever you put out, whatever you write, whatever they always buy it, no matter how much it is. So if you have 1,000 people spend $100 with you over the course of a year, like, how much is that? You know what I'm saying? That's a great income. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think enough people spend enough time with nurturing an audience and nurturing their consumer base enough. So when it comes down to it, even when it comes down to that, if you spend enough time, and even in it, I felt like I had spent enough time nurturing an audience by the time I put out my book to not really feel insecure. You know what I mean? So once I kind of put everything out and I announced to the world that I have a book coming out, it was just kind of like, okay, this is what it is. And I felt my audience, my podcast audience, my email list, they rocked with me well enough to where I'm not embarrassed to sell something to them at that point. You know what
exactly.
I'm saying?
And it's an honor.
Right.
That's what I want to reciprocate that like that energy. It's an honor to put out something and it's an honor for somebody else to want that thing.
Fact.
That's so dope to me. So I'm I'm always grateful. You'll know I'm always in like a bubbly, energetic. I always like, because to bring something into existence that wasn't there and to be appreciated for it makes you want to do more. And for the customer standpoint, they're getting a win. Like example, Ryan Holiday. Me and you talk about him all the time. Ryan, if you ever listen to this podcast, Malcom and I are probably two of your biggest fans. Right?
We got to get him on the show somehow.
That'd be extremely dope if we could make that happen. Let's talk it into existence.
Seriously.
Ryan Holiday is going to be on the show one day.
Yes.
But as a huge fan of him, I want more people to know about him. I think that's a fair thing. I think sometimes, customers do get in their head of like, like I don't want to look like I'm jocking them. But like as you get more mature, you realize like you need these people's content,
right?
Because it helps you. His new book, Courage. I'm like, all right, wow. Like I'm a pretty behind the scenes person. I like to make money in peace and silence. Right? I'll just be completely honest. Like I don't like people really knowing what's in my business. I don't really like people knowing that. People think that Instagram is the only way to make money, where it's far from the truth.
Right.
I know people that have, $100 million and got one follower. Right. so like it's you really don't need that. It's just in this day and age when we talk about speed and being able to, it's just a lot faster. Right. Unless you're doing big business outside of it, that allows you to kind of, do those things. So if you're a fan, if you appreciate what we're doing, let us know. Like we really appreciate that. And if you want to see more in those things, like it's okay to be like, hey man, like I want to see more. It's okay to support. Right. It's okay to participate. I know we segued from one topic into another.
We actually did that every episode so far, but I'm cool with it. You know what I'm saying? Because that's naturally how our conversations go. When we're talking about one thing and then it just kind of naturally leads. And I think that's important for the audience who are listening, who are watching, understand that many of these business concepts we're talking about, they feed into other concepts that'll help you grow as well. So that's what we just kind of did just now. We're talking about speed, but we're also talking about customer service and how speed can help customer service and how that'll help build your audience and that'll help you nurture your audience to you where you have 1,000 true fans. I think that's a great number for people to start off with. But 1,000 true fans and how that'll help with your income, that'll help you build your business. If you're thinking about 1,000 true fans to somebody who has, or let's say 1,000 viewers to somebody who has millions of viewers, right? That'd be small, facts. But if you think about this room here and 1,000 people in this room right now, it'd be very tight. And to hear what you have to say, like you should feel some type of pride in that. And you have, cultivating that type of audience. So that's always my message to people.
And I'll leave the people with this, right? And and I kind of sometimes I get emotional about it in that sense because like it's such a powerful thing, right? Once you make your first dollar, right? Your first real dollar, not like, hey, it's my mom, so my mom's always going to support me. Like, my buddies are always, I'm talking about a random person who doesn't know you and came into the knowing of you and then decided, you know what? Malcom, Andre, X, Y, and Z person, like that guy or girl. Here's $1 or however much your product costs. That's the proof of concept. Mm-hmm. And if you can make $1, I need y'all to understand you can make $1 million or whatever number you want. That is not far-fetched. That's not, you just saying that. That is a real thing. You make $1 from somebody. Think about, I'm not even going to, I was going to branch into, matter of fact, I'll jump into it. It is what it is.
Go ahead.
Think about the fact that there are only a certain amount of personality types. Right?
Right.
So if there are 8.9 billion people on the face of the planet, and there's only, let's say, 20 personality types, then it's 8.9 billion divided by 20 personality types, which is some still ungodly number of millions, right?
Right.
And that person that purchased whatever your product is of one of those personality types, So now that one person in that personality type is then multiplied by 200 to 500 million people.
Your market cap is
and your market, there's unlimited potential as long as the idea is sound and it's scalable.
right.
Because some ideas just aren't scalable. I'm not gonna shy away from telling the people that. I kind of want to do a segment that we might open up to people, pitching their ideas to us or something along those lines, and we could help with viability. I think that'd be dope.
That'd be fine
as well, potentially. Just something to put on the board. I mean, if the people want that, they'll tell us they want that.
Yeah. So before we go into like 3 more other topics, because we could go, but we will be back next week. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and give us your real feedback into how you feel the show is in the comment below. And if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, anywhere podcasts are listened to, you can leave us a review, and we will definitely appreciate that and take your review into account. So with that being said, I'm Malcolm. This is Andre. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Our information is in the description below. We appreciate y'all. We will see you guys next week. Peace.
All right, guys. Peace.